Right, it's been a couple of days now since Johnny had passed. I am feeling much better, in all honesty. Now, it really did take me a couple of days to process what had happened. But you know what? I think what really kind of took me out of my slump, and certainly feeling down, was just seeing just the amazing messages, not just on my video, but also on just other dating coaches' videos as well, who made something in memory of Johnny. And a lot of the messages that I saw had just genuinely touched me. I think one of the concerns that I had, because it wasn't any secret that Johnny's channel had kind of stagnated a bit, that he was like on average getting maybe like 50 to like 150, 200 views on videos. And I think one of my worries was that he was going to kind of like fade into the background and just people wouldn't really care. And I'm so glad that I was wrong about that. I've just loved reading so many of the comments. The amount of phone calls that I've had speaking to people, like catching up with other coaches, and other old friends who knew him as well, through things like my WhatsApp, through Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube as well. Like honestly, from like the bottom of my heart, like thank you so much for speaking to me about him, and and reminiscing on him with me and stuff. Yeah, it certainly really did help, and again, just seeing all the messages and stuff from people as well. So I finally feel much better to actually do this video, where I wanted to actually just address a lot of the questions and queries that guys have about with Johnny's suicide and with passing, and just other things about the industry as well, because I am noticing, not just on my video, but on other coaches' videos as well, just how people's thoughts are spiraling a bit. They're kind of getting a bit too out there on the situation. And and Johnny was such a beam of light. I mean, in a way, I'd maybe kind of describe him as like a lighthouse in the dark, helping guide people on their way back to land. And that, with how people feel about with him taking his life, they kind of feel, I think the guys who have a lot of anxiety, and especially those who do have OCD, they are kind of feeling like, well, there's no hope. So I really want to address some of these things, particularly because I don't want people feeling too frightened and worried about their own lives as well. So I kind of want to put some things at ease. I'm going to try my very best to answer stuff in this video. And also, everything that I do speak about is really just from my own gathering of research and just understanding what had happened with Johnny. If anything, I think we're all very fortunate that Johnny documented his life so much. I mean, I just find it so amazing that in all of the years that I've known him, because I've known him since like 2013, I think it must have been, that he made 4,000 videos to just keep track of everything, in the time that he worked with me and with other cameramen as well. And even during the lockdowns, when he'd sort of bought his own camera gear and he'd asked me for some advice on like, well, how do I do all this and that? It's just been amazing just how much he has recorded of himself. And so I watched through the most recent content from the last 4 weeks, where I'd kind of identified where I think like everything had sort of started to spiral a bit. As you can kind of see here, sort of where I've watched, and then I watched others on my phone as well. And then he had like other shorts and stuff of like him in the gym working out, which I didn't feel the need really to watch that. So I'm gonna give guys, or give you some insight into everything that played out with him, and hopefully it does kind of answer your questions, for concerns that maybe you do have. But just a number of things though before I do kind of get into stuff. So the first thing that I have at least noticed though with comments is people trying to speculate on how he died. Now, as much as I can understand that there is the curiosity there that you are, well, wondering, how did he take his life? Anything that you might be seeing online really is just speculation. There is nothing confirmed with what he did. And I'm going to kindly ask or kindly request that you don't be making assumptions and guesses and trying to spread the rumors from what maybe you've heard from someone else online. I would like, in all honesty, and I'm sure other people would agree, Johnny was such an amazing guy. I think it's best to just have plausible deniability and not know how he took his life. I'm again, the curiosity will always be there, but you have to ask yourself, like, what difference is that going to make to you for knowing like what he did? And I'd rather remember the good times of Johnny, and and how much he enjoyed his life and helping people, rather than knowing like how he suffered in the end. So if I can kindly request, if you've seen stuff or if you've even written stuff, maybe not on my video because I know I've got my video clean, but on other people's videos, if you can please not speculate, just out of respect for Johnny, even at the very least, that really would be like so much appreciated. And the other thing as well is that Johnny mentioned a lot in his videos about online bullying. And I think even more so, I am now fully against tolerating anything that indicates bullying online, especially whether it be on my videos or on other people's videos. So I kindly ask, if you haven't got anything decent to say, please do not type anything at all. You are not contributing, you are not helping out. All you are going to do is hurt people even more. Johnny was in a struggling place, and in a lot of the videos, and I'll talk about this very shortly, but in a lot of videos he does bring up about bullying, not just from like his past, but also in online bullying as well. And this content, by all means, it's there, it's in his videos from the last 4 weeks. So, if you do want to watch them, they are there. There's nothing that I will be saying that is going to be a complete surprise, but you sort of understand as you go through his videos just how these online comments that he was getting from people were chipping away at how he was feeling about himself. And then definitely in one of the videos I watched, he was just talking about how he wondered if actually maybe these people who were leaving comments were right, and maybe it was him in the wrong, maybe he is a bad person and stuff. And and with how well Johnny articulates things, he kind of comes around to like, no, but I try and remember, like, I'm in a good place, these are just demons and I'm having to face my demons and stuff. So yeah, if you can kindly refrain from leaving bad comments, that would be great. And the thing as well, even if you do see bad comments online, just understand that the people behind them, yes, there might be the trolls out there, and absolutely there are people out there who are quite happy to just watch the world burn and ruin people's lives because they get a kick out of it. At the same time as well, just consider that some of these guys or some of the people who leave comments, they're either like some 5 or 10-year-old kid who just doesn't know any better, or it could be someone who genuinely has their own mental health issues and they don't understand what it is that they're typing that could be seen as offensive or could be seen as online bullying. So just consider that if you do see comments. But I think now more than ever, I need to try and encourage people, or I want to just be more supportive and just help each other more so as well. So just going through the questions that I've seen throughout like all of the videos online. So what was the reason for Johnny taking his life? Well, believe it or not, there was actually a lot of things that was going on with him that just became very apparent when I was watching the videos from the last 4 weeks. And the first one really that I'd started at was when I'd seen about that he'd stopped working so he could focus on his mental health issues and his OCD. Now, as someone who has had burnouts, I've had several burnouts over the last decade of running my own business. That for me was the thing that kind of caught my attention, because the soon as you stop a routine, and we all felt this during the lockdowns, but that's when you kind of don't have things to distract you from what those inner voices might say. And I think for me, from what I watched, that was probably one of the first pivotal moments of just things taking a different path. Now, Johnny also mentions about that he lost his best friend to suicide and that he also came out of a relationship. He mentions as well that his OCD kicked in, and one of the stories that got him to become aware of it was that he went swimming and he felt like a lump on his chest, and that made him really paranoid. And then he went to the doctor about it because he thought it was cancer, and they were telling him like, no, it's nothing. And then the more that thought process was explored and looked into medically, then it came to the conclusion that he had OCD. Now, on top of that, Johnny has had mental health issues over the years. He did have a mental breakdown. I think it was in 2017, and he was in a hospital for a little bit. And then he'd sort of found religion a bit during that time, and he was also on medication. He actually also speaks about how he came off of medication in his videos, which, unless he's told medically to come off of meds, I do not recommend that you do something like that. Well, I suppose actually I'm in no position to even make a statement on it, but that is something for you to speak to a doctor about, if you can come off of medication or if you should stay on it. Because most of the time, people who are on meds, it is what's helping them. It is what's keeping them alive. Now, besides all those things as well, Johnny did suffer, it seems, from a lot of online bullying as well, which, like I mentioned just before, and he also found himself in a little bit of financial debt. Now, for what he kind of reveals online, he said that he was sort of struggling to pay rent, and he also needed to pay his HMRC tax, which I can only assume was his self-assessment from last year or from the start of the year that needed paying. So, he was certainly in a little bit of a predicament, and all of these things combined absolutely would have been the factors into his struggles and his decision to take his life. So yeah, it was incredibly heartbreaking to see the titles on these videos and just see like how how things deteriorated. But it really did give an understanding of like what all of the things that was going on for him, and just heartbreaking that with how YouTube's algorithm was working, that like none of us were aware of these. I mean, had I have seen these titles even a couple of weeks ago, even I would have reached out to him to have found out what's going on, as much as other people would have as well. So unfortunately, it is what it is. But even then, when you watch through these videos, he articulates his problems so well that you just wouldn't have known that there was a problem, or you would have known there was a problem, but with how he was speaking about it, it was like how a coach would talk to their client, like, look, here's the problem, and this is how you're going to deal with it, right? I want you to do this, this, and this, and that's how you'll work through it. Johnny was so good at helping people with their anxiety and their fears. He'd been doing it for easily like 2 decades, that he spoke about it in a way like it wasn't a big deal. So even then, we've seen these titles, even if you watch the videos, you'd still get the impression of like he was just working through it. He was dealing with it, and that there really wouldn't have been anything else to have done. Now, he did actually mention as well, like in his videos, how that how he would never have like taken handouts from people. It wasn't, you know, something that he wanted to do. He accepted that, you know, he was struggling financially, but that was also because he had stopped working. He had stopped working with clients, so obviously he wasn't having an income. And his decision to stop working was because he wanted to focus on his mental health and his OCD. But if there's anything from my experience with being around people with this, is that it then just, you're actually stepping away from the things that are genuinely helping you, and you're just bringing more awareness to the problems that you've got. And I do unfortunately think that, you know, the more aware he became of the problems that he had, unfortunately the worse that it did get for him. But like I say as well, he didn't want to take handouts from people, so it's possible even if people did offer him money, he wouldn't have taken it. But it is heartbreaking how, you know, on the last day, or on the day that I think he had taken his life, you know, for him to be saying that he was struggling financially, that he wanted to get some money together to pay for ERP therapy for his OCD, and if anyone can help him, he'd be grateful. And then him signing it. I mean, that for me is the heartbreaking thing, because, you know, again, you see this transition over the 4 weeks from, you know, that he's in a good, well, he's in an okay place, but then it's just getting worse to that end. So yeah, I don't think there really would have been much more that people could have done, in all honesty. Right, next question I had though was people kind of questioning, like, why didn't he reach out for help? Now, the truth is, he actually was reaching out for help. In many of his videos, he was speaking about how he was seeing a doctor about his problems. He was on the phone to suicide hotlines. He was on the phone to mental health and depression hotlines, and advice phone numbers. And he was even speaking to companies about getting loans, and particular ones that help people who have mental health issues and are struggling financially. So the truth is, Johnny was doing absolutely everything that you would suggest to someone to do. You know, he had reached out for help in the most professional way possible. Now, had he reached out to friends or not? I mean, I know he didn't reach out to me, and after speaking to a few other people, because like I say, I caught up with loads of coaches over the last few days. Johnny hadn't reached out to any coach, or he hadn't reached out to any of the other friends perhaps that he had. So maybe in that sense, he did feel alone. Maybe he felt that he didn't want to burden other people, and he didn't want to ask for money until that kind of final day that he knew he had to reach out for help. And unfortunately, people just didn't see it. So Johnny was looking for help with people. So I don't want people thinking like, because I saw comments of people getting upset, like that they saw the titles and they should have helped him, or they should have offered him money, or people's thoughts spiraling of like, oh, why didn't he reach out for help? We've lost another one in the industry. But yeah, again, I want to emphasize, Johnny did everything in his power to actually reach out for help. And again, this is all through his videos that he was documenting of himself over the last 4 weeks. And he just very comfortably says like how he went to the doctor and he spoke about this and that, how he was speaking to a debt company. Sorry, not a debt company, how he was speaking to like a loans company to help with his debt. So again, he did literally everything that he possibly could to work on all of these things. Did Pickup cause Johnny to commit suicide? So I saw this like variations of this comment on a few videos, and no, Pickup did not cause Johnny to commit suicide. Now, Johnny had stepped away really from the pickup and cold approaching world for many years. He loved to really just sort of specialize in working with people with their anxiety and fears and phobias. And he moved more into the life coaching realm than he did really with doing like the dating coaching stuff. So for him, you know, a lot of his videos then just became, you know, talking heads like this now, because he just loved articulating his experience with fear and anxiety, and he wanted to just help other people with that. So Johnny definitely was not influenced in any sort of way with his decision from pickup. And even then, saying that, the times that he, in the years that he worked with me doing filming on the street with his street demonstrations of cold approaching and speaking to people, and even with what he did with other dating coaches there, not other dating, with other cameramen thereafter, he thoroughly enjoyed approaching. He loved it. He loved to be able to socialize. He loved to be able to express himself and connect with people on such a deep level. So I don't want guys thinking that, you know, if they do pick up, you know, it's going to ruin their lives. Not in the slightest, but you've obviously got to look after yourself when you are doing it. And Johnny was in a really good place back then as well. I mean, he had his moments with his anxiety, and certainly there are plenty of other videos about his life story and the struggles that he had growing up with bullying and getting into fights, which was why he kind of got into boxing. So he wanted to protect himself more. And even through the phases where he did actually talk about the thoughts that he had of suicide at a much younger age. I'm sure I remember one about him saying about when he was like 25 and he thought about it. So, you know, he had a roller coaster of a life, but Johnny learned how to deal with it and handle it with such grace that I kind of see why, is why I feel like, you know, he really was a lighthouse in the dark. He just had gone through literally hell and back with his own life and his own journey, that he was the person to be able to advise and give people advice on to help them as well. Another one. So is there anything people could have done? So I kind of mentioned it before, and the truth is no. Johnny was an incredibly proud person. He didn't want to take handouts or anything, but like I say, it wasn't until, you know, that final day when I think he really did have that cry for help, with putting out that comment requesting if people could lend him money. You know, that's where I think it really was that moment that he knew something now had to change, because he was at that place where if he didn't ask for help, that demon was gonna take over, and unfortunately it did. And you know, and I've had, I mean, Johnny was the fourth friend that I've known to take in his life, and I've spoken to people and I've been around people who have thought about suicide and stuff. And usually when it comes to that moment, I'm going to be trying cautious with how I say this, but when it kind of comes to that moment, it can feel like a demon or something else just takes over, and it's that thing that has the conviction and the decision and makes sense of the idea that the only way we're going to get out of this is to take our life. So, you know, it was. I think the point is that there just really wasn't anything that anyone would have been able to have done to have helped him out of the situation. And you know, even on that last day, if no one saw that comment, then again, there's not really anything else that could have been done in that moment. So I don't want guys feeling like, you know, it's their fault. I did see comments where people were like, I should have seen the signs and stuff, but you just didn't know. Again, he spoke about things so well, no one would have known any better. Okay, so another question I had was like, is doing cold approaching or getting into pickup a bad thing? So I had guys spiraling with their thoughts like, oh, you know, doing this is going to just ruin your life. Like, what's the point? But again, it's doing cold approaching or practicing speaking to people, you know, if we put the silly lingo aside and terminology, you know, all doing pickup or day game or cold approaching is nothing but just a gamified version of developing your social skills with people you're attracted to. That's literally it. And there's nothing wrong with that. To socialize with people is a good thing. It's a healthy thing, you know, albeit, you know, doing it on the street and stuff is certainly a very uncommon thing to do, but it's still absolutely fine. Now, it does though lead into the idea of, you know, what kind of things can you critique about the dating industry, which I can agree on, which there are two things that really do bother me with it. One being how guys can get addicted to doing pickup and how that can ruin their lives and certainly drive them down a troublesome path with their mental health issues. And the alternative is when guys use pickup or use cold approaching as a distraction from their life problems. Now, if you are doing those two things, then absolutely you need to reconsider your experience with practicing this. You need to make sure that you are balancing it and you are seeing help, whether it be a therapist, a doctor, whoever. That is where then I absolutely do critique it. But the actual act of speaking to people, no, I disagree with. It is absolutely fine. And again, Johnny loved it. And I can even recall on the days that I was working with Johnny, Johnny would hire me for like 4 to 8 hour days, and he was a full-time job at the time as well. So we were doing like 5-6 days a week. And on top of that, I was still editing the videos as well as, you know, doing all this filming. And Johnny was easily speaking to, I kid you not, about 30, 40 women every single time we went out. So he was getting fantastic results. And even in regards to his dating life, he kept things private. And I know he met some amazing women and dated some incredible women. You know, people's speculation and people's opinion on him and stuff on like how he was as a person. And, you know, people who knew him, people who cared about him, who he was friends with, will know just what Johnny was like. And he was a great guy. He knew how to speak to people. He knew how to connect with people in such an amazing way. And I know definitely from over the years, or at least in the time that I worked with him, he like I say, he met some amazing women and even dated some incredible women, which maybe I'll do like another video on another time, just, you know, reminiscing on all the great stuff that I remember with Johnny and definitely like the videos that I've got of him as well. So is this the end of the dating industry? Believe it or not, I can't believe I even saw this comment or comments like it. No, it's not. But it's really important that, guys, if you want to be doing this and working on your dating life, you really do have to, you know, think about your mental health and take care of it. You've got to be in a good place. Getting rejections and stuff, you know, everyone gets rejected in life. But if you're not in a good place mentally, then doing approaching is certainly going to affect you. And no, Johnny was not affected by rejections. He'd experienced, yes, a lot, but he also had a lot of great results as well. He was someone who tackled anxiety and fear head on, and he got tremendous results from it. So, you know, it might feel like now that there are less and less dating coaches out there in the world, or especially in London, but it doesn't mean that the industry is over. But guys need to be more sensible with it. They need to have more common sense, or you need to have more common sense on, you know, what your experience is going to be, and are you in a good place? You know, entering the dating industry and participating in it should be more of a compliment in your life rather than it being the thing that takes it over, you know. And it's why I fully disagree with anything that's pickup artistry related, because that just teaches you to just let this consume your life, that, you know, dating women is everything and it means everything. And also you are creating this personality that isn't natural. It's not authentic. And if there's anything Johnny taught, was to be natural and authentic and be your true self. develop that kind of self-actualization even, where, you know, you can be at peace with yourself. And he speaks about that even in a couple of his videos, you know, about how he just feels very zen and at peace, and he loves just having a minimalistic lifestyle, and he just loves to be able to speak to people. It's like one of the greatest things that he loves to be able to do, and sharing his thoughts. And, you know, and that I think is also what people loved about with Johnny, that he just never like held his thoughts back. He never really bit his tongue. He just expressed himself. And I think that's why people resonated with him and connected with him, because, you know, what you saw is what you got. And, you know, if you're going to enter into this dating industry, if you're thinking about doing cold approaching, let that be who you want to adopt. Like, be that kind of guy who just freely expresses himself, who doesn't say the same thing that every other guy has. And that's really what Johnny stood for, in every one of his 4,000 videos, you know, that he made. So another question that I had, what will happen to Johnny's videos? Well, first of all, his YouTube channel is obviously going to stay intact. Nothing is going to happen to it. It's going to stay there. It's going to be left as is. And I think, just, if anything, just a great documentation of his life's journey, and of course up until the end. And I think as well, it's going to bring some great awareness for guys with mental health problems and just mental health in general. So yeah, so his channel will absolutely remain as is. Now, I am actually in talks with Eddie, who used to have Street Attraction, and him and Johnny used to be sort of best friends many years ago. And we caught up over the last couple of days, and he's actually got a load of old video footage of him and Johnny together. And I also have all of the video footage from when we worked together, or when I worked with Johnny, of how we or he influenced and changed the industry for the better. Like, I don't think guys are aware just how much Johnny's content that I did with him influenced and made such drastic changes to what like coaches are taught today, what kind of methods are used, the self-expression, and, you know, in even what like guys are using as well, was heavily influenced from Johnny, whether people will admit it or not, or are aware of it or not. So, you know, I would love to be able to share that content with people, because I think Johnny sort of like hid a lot of stuff, not because he was ashamed of it. He was incredibly proud of everything that he did. And that is definitely worth noting. But just as he shifted into like the life coaching side of things, he just wanted to focus more on having talking head stuff. So Eddie and I are in talks, because I want to decide what the best way is to actually put out the old videos from like a decade ago. I have those since some guys are trying to start sharing, like downloading and re-uploading his videos. Can I kindly ask that you don't have permission for that? People have already started uploading footage that I filmed, and I've already had to say, look, I don't give you permission to use that. So if you can, please just leave that for me and Eddie, and also the other camera guys that Johnny had, to decide what they want to do with the footage as well. But if anything, when I get to properly speak with Eddie in December, when we have a catch up, because he's traveling at the moment, we're going to just decide maybe on like what's the best way to release the content. Do we put it out on our channels, or do we make like a new one in memory of him? Personally, my thought on it is that I don't want to make another channel in memory of Johnny, because I feel that will distract away from his main channel. I'd rather, you know, if people are going to search for him, I'd rather like people get directed to his channel. But I would certainly feel really comfortable if Eddie releases the footage he has of him with Johnny on his channel, and then I can do the same on mine and just have it in a playlist, and then just have everything in every video redirecting to his channel as well. You know, and I've kind of even, I've really had to sort of like and about the traffic issue, because either way we've putting the video content out, it's going to draw traffic towards it. So, but I think though, having the content on a different channel would just pull people away from the main one. So I'd rather the content the video content I have of him go on my channel in a playlist. I also have his 30-day anxiety program that I made with him back in the day as well. And I'd love for guys to be able to have that for free. That is something that was just ahead of its time, even back then, that made life-changing differences really for people. And Johnny and I were just so proud of it. So I'd love for guys to be able to have that, and being able to put it on my own channel. And same with Eddie, putting the footage he has on his own channel just means that we can SEO the stuff appropriately to make sure that it really does get in front of people. And people can just see what Johnny was like back in the day. And, you know, again, like how much he really did change the industry. So yeah, we're going to do that. And also, you know, again, I don't want anything interfered with Johnny's main channel either. So yeah, so we're going to do that, I think. But no, there's going to be no rush with that content going out as of yet until I speak with Eddie properly about it. Yeah, everything is just going to stay as is. But guys, if you are, please do not download and re-upload Johnny's content. You are only going to pull people away from Johnny's main channel. And I also don't like the idea of just some random guys now just trying to get traffic for themselves because they are stealing, you know, a dead man's content. So yeah, just out of respect, please do not copy these. Otherwise I will be very strict and I will copyright them. And you'll just end up getting your accounts blocked. So please do not download and share them, you know, unless you either have my permission, Eddie's permission, or any of the other cameramen's permission as well, please. Right, last question as well that I had was like supporting Johnny's family and with the funeral. So there were actually a lot of questions based around you know, can people like give his family support? Can you give them money? Can you attend his funeral and stuff? So I haven't yet had the opportunity to reach out to them at the moment. There's kind of like this degrees of separation thing where I'm speaking to someone who knows Johnny's cousin, who was obviously part of the family and things. So there's kind of a bit of like a chain going on with just reaching out to people. Now, I'm also trying to be very respectful that they are grieving right now. You know, they've lost their son, their brother, their cousin. So I want to give them space. As much as I can appreciate as well, guys probably want to donate money and, you know, and attend the funeral. With the money thing, I mean, I will try and reach out to them, or I'll try and go through the chain to find out if there is any way that people can donate money to Johnny's family, if it helps pay costs towards the funeral, which I do think is a really nice gesture. But as for actually attending the funeral, I personally, my view on it would be to let that be for the family and pay your respects after Johnny has been buried. You know, he meant a lot to a lot of people, but I think it's just really important that just a whole bunch of random people don't just turn up at a funeral. You know, unfortunately, this industry does attract all different kinds of crowds of people, and I think it would be potentially disrespectful if someone or a load of people turned up at the burial and were being like noisy or were talking or whatever, you know, because unfortunately there'll be just guys like that. So so I will try my best to find out, like, maybe, yeah, if there is something that people can do if they do want to offer them support or money. I will let people know with that. But for now, let's just give the family some space. And like, I'm sure they will actually put a comment out. I'm sure there'll be a ripple effect or some messaging that comes down the chain back to us to let us know what's going on. But yeah, for now, let's just sort of let that grieving family just have some space. So I think that was probably all the questions. I think I've done my best to it. I know there's stuff that I've probably like forgotten about and things. There was a lot of like topics on stuff again from what I saw of questions from my video, other videos as well. So I mean, if you do have like other questions or doubts or concerns about with Johnny's suicide, or you have some problems yourself as well and you want to speak, please do put comments below. Excuse me. Yeah, please do put comments below. And I'm going to be pretty much by my laptop as much as I can, so I will answer anything as quickly as I possibly can. But I do think that's probably all the questions. And yeah, if you've got more stuff, just fire away.